Welcome to Personal Best. This course has been developed with the help and assistance of over 200 high achievers from the world of business, entrepreneurship, leadership, management, sports, the sciences, and many other fields. And it's dedicated to helping you become the best that you can be, because people who succeed in their lives aren't genetically superior, and quite often their backgrounds do not indicate what they might accomplish. They simply have a different strategy, and that's what this course is about. It's about giving you a methodology that allows you to realise massive and lasting improvements in your life. Before we begin, there's a PDF workbook which accompanies this course. If you haven't got it, you can get it right now at personalbest.co.uk/the-workbook. And there you'll be able to print that off, or indeed use it online if you use the Word version of it, to fill in the answers to some key questions that come up during this course. And I would urge you to do that. If you've taken the time and you're going to invest even more of your time learning some of these key strategies, it would be wise to make a note of it and to ask yourself the questions that are going to give you the answers in terms of what you want to see in your life. Before we move on much further, success is a fairly broad term, and it means different things to each of us as we move through our life. And quite often success, or what would constitute success when we're young, doesn't matter so much when we're a little bit older, and the things that we're concerned about in our 20s or 30s might not much matter to us when we're 50 or 60. So I think we need to agree right away that success does mean different things to us. That for some of us it might be financial, for others it might be health, for others it may be in terms of their relationship or perhaps their career. But whatever success means to you, I think you could probably agree that it just means, if you had to encapsulate in a word, it means expansion. It means more of something. So in essence, if you want to be financially successful, you want more money. If you want to find the partner of your dreams, you want more love in your life and more connectivity. If you're looking to be healthy, then you want more vitality and energy within your body. But for most of us, it means a bit of all of those things. But really, that's what Personal Best is about. It's about giving you everything that you want in your life, more of the things that you want in your life as they're important to you, and at a measure and a parameter that's relevant and important to you as well. There's absolutely no point in comparing yourself or judging your life success compared to other people. Only you know what's important to you. So the ethos of Personal Best is kind of based around what an athlete would do. Rarely do they make quantum leaps overnight, although using this course you can make massive changes. But usually for an athlete, the success is incremental. It comes in bits, and they scratch a little bit of time, or they throw a little further. But these improvements built upon each other make way to massive change and massive overall improvement. When I began this journey of interviewing some of the most successful people in the world, I just wanted to bring together the common threads of knowledge that they had so that we could duplicate it in our own lives. And the one thing they do is they ask a bit more of themselves consistently. And that's one of the key contrasts in terms of those who achieve massive success and those who don't. And I'm eternally grateful to the time to help develop this course. The course itself is split into two parts, and we'll explore this a little bit more as we move through it. The first part is the key traits that I've identified through these interviews, and they've been put into the personal part. So that relates to purpose and the power of a purpose, and the two key questions we all must ask ourselves. And then the main traits: enthusiasm, resilience, specialised, that's specialist knowledge within the area, a commitment to ongoing improvement, nerve and showing courage when need be. They were all people of action, and leadership, but not leadership in the traditional sense, more like self-leadership and personal integrity in relation to how they dealt with themselves. In the second part of the course, we'll explore how we can take these traits and adopt them in our own life by looking at best how we control our belief system and how that's the power behind everything that you see in your life, how you can emulate others and shortcut years of learning from any area of your life where you want to see an improvement simply by duplicating the success that others have had, and indeed avoiding the mistakes that they made. We'll put in a strategy, a key plan that you can use to control your life, to direct your life the way you want it to go. And finally, we'll look at thinking, this omnipresent power. Thinking controls your entire life, and what goes through your subconscious mind becomes your reality. So, let's get started. What is the difference that makes a difference? Well, I asked hundreds of people this question. People, as I said, who've come from a range of backgrounds. Some of them are there in front of you right now. Sir Tom Farmer, who founded QuickFit, Lords Ashdown and Kinnock, who both led political parties with some distinction, Lord Harris, who founded Carpetright, Baroness Susan Greenfield, a well-known thinker, and Frank Williams, who founded and still leads Williams Grand Prix, and Trevor Bayliss, the inventor of the wind-up radio, who changed a lot of lives through his work. And all of these people, despite their different backgrounds, or maybe because of their different backgrounds, have an understanding of what works or what has worked in their life. And it was remarkable to me the number of common threads that ran through all of their stories. And indeed the contrast in the ability of some people to overcome seemingly, or not seemingly, absolutely difficult circumstances when others can't, was kind of shown to me one day when I met Brian Mackenzie, or Lord Mackenzie as he now is, and he was a former police superintendent. He now is a working peer in the House of Lords, and one of the things he's been really active in is changing much of the law, or lobbying for changes in the law, and bringing those changes onto the British Statute Book. And when I spoke to him, he told me the thing he was most proud of was the law that he changed or helped change as it related to double jeopardy. Now, this was a law that means somebody can't be tried twice for the same crime. So somebody could commit a crime, and if they were acquitted, it wouldn't matter if evidence came to light after the event. They'd already been tried once, so they couldn't be tried again. And that changed, and one of the reasons Brian was so keen to make that change is he remembers as a young police officer a man called Donald Hume who escaped a murder charge for the killing of a business associate, and subsequently sold his story to a Sunday newspaper after his acquittal, where he shared in some detail how he had killed his victim and indeed disposed of his body. And the unfairness of this stuck with Brian, particularly as sometime later Donald Hume went on to kill again, killing a taxi driver in Switzerland. But I actually spent some time looking at Donald Hume's life, and as you might imagine, most of us don't grow up hoping to be murderers or killers or doing things that are wrong. Quite often we seem to be a victim of our circumstance or our environment or our upbringing, and it's why we have to be careful as adults how we manage what's in our lives. And indeed, it'll probably come as no surprise to you to discover that this chap, Donald Hume, had suffered a fairly horrible childhood. He'd been fostered out to an orphanage, which was a fairly cruel place when he was a young boy, and the orphanage he went to, beatings were administered and the kids were treated very, very poorly. In fact, when he was only 7 years old, he tried to attack a staff member with an axe, and he was farmed back out to an auntie who he'd never met before, but this auntie was fairly cold towards him, and she indulged her daughters and was fairly cruel to the young Donald. It turned out that this wasn't his auntie, it was actually his birth mother, but she didn't want to tell him that or admit that he was hers. And this led him to more rebellious behaviour, and before too long he ended up leaving home as a teenager. He went into the world and led a life really of petty larceny, which culminated in becoming a murderer. And it perhaps is hardly surprising, looking at his background and the circumstances and what he'd suffered, that he didn't lead a life of virtue, or one that would generally accept to be a great example. But that same day, I spoke to another man called George, and George is now in his 60s, but he too had a kind of similar upbringing. He was fostered out at a young age. He actually ended up living with his grandmother, and she gave him away to a travelling family because it was post-war Britain and they were very poor. Now, the travelling family he ended up with weren't any richer in terms of their financials, and his existence was fairly penurious. And indeed, it was compounded by the fact that he suffered from ill health. And in those days, whether you had a physical or a mental affliction, it didn't really matter. You went to the special schools, you were kind of denied a proper education or a full education as we would understand it. And then to compound his problems further, George's mother came back into his life, claimed him back off this travelling family, and took him to live with her new husband, who became his stepfather, and his son, who became George's stepbrother. But the mother was soon away again, leaving George in the care of his stepfather and with his stepbrother. And things became worse again when the stepbrother began to take a sexual interest in George and attacked him on a number of occasions. And eventually, at only 8 years old, George ended up walking the streets rather than going home and suffering these brutal attacks. So George left school at 15 years of age. He had no qualifications, a very limited education. He had suffered the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune during his childhood. And on his first day as an electrical apprentice, his gaffer was trying to explain to him the rudimentaries of electricity, and he just couldn't understand it. This foreman who was trying to talk him through the basic premise of what he'd chosen as an apprenticeship, he just couldn't comprehend it. And he said something really interesting. When I spoke to him, he told me, in life, I decided that I could be a victim or a victor. I chose the latter. He made a decision. So he went back to college, studied part-time at night, whilst holding down a full-time job, and eventually gained a qualification in electrical engineering. And George rose through the ranks of several companies, becoming a manager and moving into board level appointments. Eventually, George moved to the States, becoming the chairman and chief executive of the 3M conglomerate, one of the world's biggest companies. And today, George Buckley is renowned as one of the premier business managers that is alive. He has been knighted and recognised for his services to businesses. And the reason for telling this story is, what's the difference that makes a difference? Why is it that Donald Hume had such a poor upbringing and ended up a double murderer? Why is it George had an equally poor upbringing but ended up as one of the preeminent business people of his age? And the difference is, as we'll look at as we move through this course, but the primary difference is the mental processing and thinking that each undertook. You see, this is the difference between positive thinking and what personal best is. I'm a great proponent of positive thinking and the benefits of it, but equally, if you can't deny your situation or your truth. Now, I live near the coast and it rains here a lot. There's no point me saying that every day will be bright and sunny and that it won't rain on me. It's going to rain and I've got to face that reality. And in life it's the same. We don't have to throw our intelligence out the window. I'm not asking you to buy into some kind of Pollyanna idea. I'm just saying to you that your thinking is going to dictate what and who you're going to become. So stay positive, keep that positive mindset. But there's no point in losing sight of the fact that you share the world with billions of other people, each of who have got a different agenda and a different idea as to how things should work. So personal best, and I keep repeating this and probably will continue to, is about being the best that you can possibly be, being the best that you can be in your life as it pertains to you without comparison to others. There was a kid called Richard Thompson who was a really quick runner, and he found himself able to beat kids much older than himself at a fairly young age. And indeed, he ended up making the track team for his country, Trinidad and Tobago. It was quite hard to qualify, but he managed to do it through years of hard training. And his dream was one day to run in the Olympics. And after a good winter season, including a personal best over a 60-metre indoor event, he managed to get himself a place on the 2008 Olympic team that travelled to Beijing that year. And through hard work and dint of a good attitude, he felt that he could advance as well as running the Olympics. He might make it through the early rounds, and indeed he did. He ran really well in his heat, and in the second heat he was up against the American champion Tyson Gay, and amazingly he himself ran a personal best, and breezed through his heat. He went to the semi-final, and remarkably, he qualified out of his semi-final, scoring another personal best of 9.93 seconds. It was incredible. This kid, Richard Thompson, ended up running in the final of the 100 metres at Beijing in the Olympics. Now, on the night, you might remember, it's a fairly historic event. Usain Bolt, the Jamaican sprinter, set a world record and set the world alight. He seemed to run with ease and was slowing down as he reached the finishing line. It was an incredible performance by an elite athlete. So what could all the other runners do? What could Richard do, for instance? Richard could only do the best that he could do. He'd done well to get to that final. And Richard's best was to do what he'd done the previous 2 rounds. He ran quicker than he ever did before. He went down that track in an incredible time, scoring another personal best. Now, it was 9.89 seconds I think he got that night. He couldn't have done any more than that. He simply couldn't have. Now, he could do one of 2 things. He could beat himself up by the fact that he didn't win the gold medal, or he could recognise the fact that he did more than he'd ever done before. He'd achieved anything that he had ever managed previously. And it's the same for each of us in our lives. If you do more than you ever have before, you never need to reproach yourself. That might mean that you don't go home with the gold medal, but you go home with the personal validation of having been the best that you can be. And on the night when he was interviewed, Richard didn't beat himself up. He said, "Words cannot describe how I feel right now. It's just a dream come true for me. I have to tip my hat to Usain Bolt. He's a great competitor and a phenomenal athlete, and there was no way anybody was going to beat him with a run like that. But it feels good just to come here, run in the Olympic Games, my first Olympic Games, and win a silver medal and run a personal best at the same time. I couldn't ask for anything more, thank God." And that's what it's about. Your life is about private and personal victories. If you can do a bit more, whether it's in the workplace or within the home, if you strive just to be a bit better than you were before, your life will open up in ways that you cannot believe. And that's what's really exciting. You see, all you need to do is set yourself a new standard. If you follow the same method that somebody who excels in the field has done, you can get similar results. And the key distinction between people who seemingly come from nowhere to outstanding achievement is that they set a higher standard. Now, they may have key drivers and strategies, and we can look at that as we make our way through this course. But the way to attain anything that you want in your life is decide the price that needs to be paid and pay the price. That's worth noting down. Decide the price that needs to be paid and pay the price. Bear in mind, the people I spoke to during my research came from all walks of life, but the one thing they had in common was an absolute commitment to continuous improvement. Whether consciously or subconsciously, they simply became better at what they did over a period of time. And that's the same commitment that you have to make. And make that commitment on a daily basis, because becoming better at something doesn't have to be painful, but it does have to be consistent. You have to do it daily. If you went down to the gym for the first time in 10 years, having spent most of your life eating the wrong types of food and taking no exercise, and did a 15-minute workout, you wouldn't come back and look in the mirror and expect to see a great change in body shape, hopefully a change in attitude and mindset. And it's the same with life. You have to work at something consistently if you want it to happen in your life. So let's move into the body of the course then. As I said, we're going to study in the first part purpose, enthusiasm, resilience, specialisation, ongoing improvement, nerve, action and leadership. And let me run through these very briefly. Purpose, so we're going to ask ourselves some real key questions about why do we do what we do, what is it you want in life, and why do you want it. We're going to look at enthusiasm, this infectious energy that everybody I spoke to seemed to have. We'll look at resilience, the mental toughness that they showed, because life isn't always a smooth mill pond of progression. There's going to be storms and waves and you've got to overcome them. You're going to have to specialise, you're going to have to become an expert in a certain area and commit yourself to ongoing improvement, becoming better and better at what you do and delivering more value to other people. You may well show nerve as you go through your life. You're going to have to, at some point, you're going to get out of your comfort zone, do things that you don't really want to do. You may feel fearful. And in that part of the course, we're going to look at how you overcome that. And we're also going to look at action. I tell you, if there's one common trait all of these people had without exception, they were people who took action. They didn't dream or dilly-dally or think or mull over, or they may have, but that wasn't their main mode of operation. They were people of action, forward thinkers, people who made things happen in their life. And when we look at leadership, and I've already alluded to this, not perhaps in the traditional sense of leading others, but their personal integrity as it pertained to themselves. They didn't take any nonsense from themselves. They didn't make any excuses for themselves. They were great self-leaders. In the second half, we're going to look at best belief and how that impacts your life, what you believe about others, the world around you, who's in your life, who shouldn't be in your life, and effectively your belief about how the mechanics of the world works. We're going to look at emulating the strategies of others, learning from what they've done that's made them successful so that we can have that in our lives, and avoiding perhaps some of the mistakes. We're going to put a powerful strategy in place, a plan for life that you can live to and work to that will deliver you fantastic results. And we're going to be watchful in our thinking. We're going to think and focus on the things that are important to us, and we're going to learn a methodology for doing that. So all you need to do is day by day, week by week, take the steps towards what you want to achieve in life. And this is perhaps the most important promise you'll ever make to yourself, a promise to ongoing improvement, a promise to actually acting upon this information and making a commitment to being your best. When you do that, opportunities and happenstance start moving in your favour, and you'll begin noticing that you're becoming better at what you do. And that's powerful.